Right, after you, Michael.
Welcome everybody to the 48th meeting of Soteria, which means we have been going for 4 years. So this is a kind of celebration as well. And it's very good to see so many people coming to the poetry reading, because one hears so much about poetry, interesting only a very small number of people. What I am proposing to do is to offer a baker's dozen of poems. A baker's dozen is traditionally, of course, 12 plus 1. And there are two ways we can interpret that as we go through. You will see what I mean by that. The poems do not have a name to them. I mean, they do have a name, but it's not being revealed here. And I think that's a good thing in that it allows people to react very naturally to a poem without having perhaps the prejudice that they might have that it's a particular writer they feel they are compelled to admire, or particular writer that they dislike. And if they like the poem, then they feel they can't like the poem because they dislike the writer. All the poems are poems that I've known for some time, with one exception perhaps, because from that writer I thought of a poem and I thought it was perhaps a bit too long, so I took another poem. So there's one poem which is a little bit new to me, but all the other poems I've known for a very long time, most of them from the time I was a child, I suppose. I'm very familiar with them and I like them very much. And a question actually I will have, which would interest me, is do people think that from the poems they see, they can see a sort of red line characterizing the person who likes such poems? So saying, oh, there's a typical example of such and such a person. That would personally interest me. Stead mentioned, we don't want to make this into a competition or something. No, I don't. But if that interests you, and probably will interest you to some degree, to find out how many of the writers you recognize, how many of the poems you recognize. I'm not going to make it into a competition where people have to read out their scores, so don't worry about that. But if you want to make a little note, might amuse you. If you know none of them, would sort of suggest that you've got a great area of discovery, a world to discover. And if you know all of them, that would mean that you're obviously very familiar with poetry. The poems are, with one exception, there's one German poem, all the poems were first written in English, and within a time span of, I would say, must be the earliest poem about 1920. I don't think there's any poem later than 1985, thereabout. One of the poets is still alive, just one of them. I probably won't say any more than that. I think we just go straight into it. And it's a joy to have people actually reading poems in a group. So let's start with the first poem. And maybe Michael York, would you kindly read this?
Oh, where are you going? Said the reader to writer. That valley is fatal, where furnaces burn. Yonder's the bidden where whose odors will madden. That gap is the grave where the tall return. Oh, do you imagine, said fearer to farer, that dusk will delay on your path to the pass? Your diligent looking discover the lacking your footsteps feel from granite to grass? Oh, what was that bird? Said horror to hearer. Did you see that shape in the twisted trees? Behind you swiftly the figure comes softly. The spot on your skin is a shocking disease. Out of this house, said the writer to reader. Yours never will, said farer to fearer. They're looking for you, said hearer to horror, as he left them there, as he left them there.
So thank you very much, Michael.
The main thing that I enjoyed very much with this poem was the rhythm, with the use of language, and the meter. I don't know whether it's an iambic tetrameter or something very similar to that, but it does have a real pulse to it, and that's
extraordinary pulse. Yes,
the musicality of it is superb. I really enjoyed it. As to the meaning, I'm less settled on what that is, but I liked it a lot. I liked it a lot.
I was reading Simon Gray's Smoker's Diaries, which some of you may have read, and I'm not obviously going to say the name of this poet, but he expressed his intense dislike of this poet and said how much more he liked Thomas Hardy, but it frustrated him and annoyed him that he couldn't quote a line of Thomas Hardy, and this poet was very easy to quote, and the line stayed in his head. So
Yeah. Michael or someone else, is the rhythm of this iambic tetrameter?
I'd have to see it again.
Or
I've never studied that myself.
okay.
I've never even thought about
Are
it.
you well up on that kind of thing?
Yeah, kind of, but I can't remember it now after having read it, so I'd have to
Oh,
see
okay.
it.
Oh
Again.
well,
When you see iambic pentameter, is that 2 shorts and a long?
that's
No,
on
one
those
short, long, about five in a line.
5 of them, but obviously
Mm.
iambic tetrameter is groups of
It's Shakespeare,
that,
largely.
yeah.
But how did other people react to that? Do they know it? Yeah. Hewitt. Some people have a very negative.
that
But you're not.
you didn't like
He
it.
missed it. He missed it.
I didn't know it.
Oh,
And what did you think of it?
I rather disliked it.
Oh well, that's positive. I mean, that's a positive reaction, a negative one, but a positive dislike, which is but
I found it a bit jingly.
yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, which I like, but maybe some people won't.
I can't remember which American writer or poet criticized Edgar Allan Poe as the Jingle Man because of a raven, a poem of a raven. But maybe it's an unfair comment, just my.
I don't think it's a totally unfair. Well, I mean, there is a jingle element in a lot of this poet's poems. Oh, and one thing I didn't mention.
I didn't actually quite catch it. Who's the poet?
No, I'll tell you all at the end.
Oh,
you have to stay around. You have to stay around. I'll tell you all at the end. But yeah, I think this poet is well known. And one thing I forgot to say, all these poems are fairly representative of the poets. I don't think it's, there's no poem here which is absolutely untypical of that poet or anything else like that. So, and I think this poet is quite jingly, but yeah. But Edith, what did you think? You're looking a bit skeptical.
Oh, I didn't really understand it, but that's probably just me. I wouldn't mind reading it again, to be honest.
Yeah, a lot of these poems are, and I hope they inspire people to read the poems again. As a very briefly, because this poem, I mean, made my hair stand on end when I first read it.
Michael,
well, I'm just going to let me answer that, Ted, because there's a question there. Is the fear that is put into people who are afraid of life, for those who are very active. Where are you going, said reader to rider? That valley is fatal where furnaces burn. Yonder's the midden whose odors will madden. That gap is the grave whence the tall return. So all the fears are coming from the person to sit at home. And then at the end, he who is full of life and adventure turns on the stay at home and says, you are the one who should fear. That is how I understand the poem, put very simply.
I like the alliteration.
Oh, the alliteration is superb, isn't it? And the assonance.
It is pervaded with alliteration. It's very, very
Yes.
It's very characteristic that is one of the rules of Old Norse poetry about certain alliterative structures, and the poet seems to be influenced by that, perhaps, because the length of line is very similar to Old Norse and Anglo-Saxon verse, and the alliterative structures seem to me very, very similar. Sorry, someone.
There's something about something can be jingly, as Father Frank says, and yet a great poem. So, for example, the medieval poem of the Trois Corbes is a great poem, a very powerful poem, but it is jingly. It's got a ballad form to it. So I think something can either transcend or use a form in a way that turns it into great poetry. I just didn't feel that in this instance.
Michael, do you think it would be appropriate? I do. If you read it again, as it's your choice. I mean, it's not a long
Sure.
poem.
Sure.
I mean,
people feel that. Yeah.
Michael,
Absolutely.
Michael in
Oh,
class.
if,
Yeah,
I
that'd
mean,
be
if
nice
I read it, okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
nice to hear you.
Could we have it on the screen as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I know it
yeah.
off by heart, but to be
Yeah.
sure, I'd like to see
Yeah,
it.
I'm not expecting. Yeah, it's,
Right, okay, good.
Oh, where are you going? Said reader to rider. That valley is fatal where furnaces burn. Yonder's the midden whose odours will madden. That gap is the grave where the tall return. Oh, do you imagine, said Fairer to Fairer, that dusk will delay on your path to the past? Your diligent looking discover the lacking. Your footsteps feel from granite to grass. Oh, what was that bird? Said Horror to Hero. Did you see that shape in the twisted trees? Behind you swiftly the figure comes softly. The spot on your skin is a shocking disease. Out of this house, said Rider to Reader. Yours never will, said Fairer to Fairer. They're looking for you, said Hero to Horror, as he left them there.
thank you.
It's about, I think it's the only one on here that I actually know by heart of the 10.
Oh, really?
Of the 13, yeah. I don't know how many times I've read that poem.
The reader is scared. The writer has less fear and is
Yes,
escaping.
Yes.
But when I first read it or listened to it, I thought it might be speaking of the sort of the Welsh coal mining valleys, but I don't think it could be, because who would be escaping that? It must be of a different. Yonder's the midden whose odours will madden. That and a midden is like a dump, I think, isn't it?
Correct. Yes.
If
I think there's a strong suggestion of death, of burning, and of the stench of. There's an enormous menace in the poem, in all its ways, and there's echoes of, I suppose, possibly Edgar Allan Poe and Walter de la Mare, Coleridge, like one who on a lonely road turns once and never more his head, because he knows a fearful fiend does close behind him tread. That from Coleridge seems to be in this as well. And so there's a great sense of menace, I think, with.
If I was superstitious, I would say there is also a jinxy element in it, almost as if some kind of jinx was included.
Oh dear, do you mean so that if you read this poem, something bad will happen to you?
Well, I mean, maybe
not my intention.
Maybe it will happen to some of you. I don't know, but I mean, it is a matter of superstition. But I did make the preface: if I was superstitious, but I'm not superstitious.
I say, it's just a coincidence that next month you're doing something on Harry Potter. Yeah,
it's quite a menacing line. They're looking for you, isn't it?
Yes,
it is.
Yes.
So
it's an escape.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's escaping from something.
Out of this house, yours never will. And each of those lines is an answer, of course. Where are you going? Out of this house. Do you imagine that dusk will, that yours never will? They're looking for you. What was that bird? Do you see that shape? They're looking for you.
Yeah, it's as if one's fate is coming to claim one or something.
Yes.
I think one of the most interesting parts is this idea of the spot on your skin is a shocking disease. And I believe you said this was written about 1920. Is that?
No, I don't know. I said the poems were from about 1920 to 1980. Although this poem would be more. more in that direction than recently. I don't know the date of the
Right.
poem.
Because
Yeah.
it seems to me like what it is saying, at least to me, my first reaction was, oh, I understand. This is about disease being in your house and you run away from the thing that's going to kill you. And the shocking disease is often associated with syphilis.
Yes, yes, a sexual disease. I think so. Yeah.
And there's this idea that if you run, and people had all sorts of horrible things. I don't know. I can't remember now. The bismuth and absinthe and arsenic to kill syphilis, and I'm thinking cure syphilis, and I'm thinking that I get this idea of men who are running from
Okay.
things that are chasing them, and which may be women or the reference to a bird, which is no matter where you go, you know, something that presence is always there, like you were saying about Edgar Allan Poe and the Raven,
Mm,
and this idea of, you know, something sitting there just waiting for you, whether
yes,
it's outside or inside your house.
yes.
And that thing, of course, is death. Now, what gets me about the writing of the poem is the difficulty in making the transition from reader to writer to fearer to fairer. It doesn't roll easily off of the tongue. Horror to hearer is better, and of course, writer to reader. But those three things are in opposition to one another, and it makes you stop at that point where you have to think, now, wait a minute, reader to writer, as opposed to sing-songing it, which you might be tempted to do. That was my first impression.
I mean, I think maybe someone's mentioned this already in the final stanza. The duplets are reversed, so it said rider to reader. What significance does that have?
What?
The reversal of the agents.
It's the other one talking.
It's the other one talking. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, it's the other one talking. So they've asked a question. Each thing is a question in each of the first three stanzas, and the last stanza, the answers from the person being questioned. So the rider, the fairer, and the hearer are answering the reader, the fearer, and the horror. And he's answering, saying, the problem and the fear is really yours. That's as I understand it.
Yeah, in fact, if you read the first line of the first three stanzas, and then you read the first three lines of the last stanza, yeah, you really get that idea that it's a reply to the person who's asking the question.
But it's interesting also that last line is one person to a lot of people. It always surprised me a bit. He left them there. Not he left him there, or they left him or something, but no, it's he left them.
Well, it's all your voices inside you, you know, warning you against doing something that might be a little bit risky. So maybe it's four voices inside one person, and the last voice, you know, just says to the other three, well, I'm not going to listen to you.
Yes, it could. Yes, a sort of overcoming of fear.
Yeah.
It could be three people in the house: the rider, the fairer, and the hearer.
Yes. And
then he's responding to all three, and then he
and the rider, the fairer, hearer then is one person.
Yeah.
Could be. You could read it like that as well.
What did it represent for you when you first read it and it became lodged in your consciousness, Michael?
I think, first of all, just the poetry of it, almost without an intellectualization. I was very young. I think I was 12 when I first read this. And then the constant repetition in my head, it was so easy to repeat. And that's why I think Simon Gray's very funny. It made me laugh when I read that, because he's absolutely right. This poet this poet is a very easy poet to remember and repeat, even if you don't like this poet. So I hope you don't have these lines in your head now, because this poet seems to have that talent. For it's easy to remember, easy to cite by heart. And I suppose after that there was this element of conquering your fears or overcoming them, or this dialogue between adventure and security, which is a dialogue probably most people have in their lives.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think it's the drama of it that appealed to me. I'm a rather dramatic person, I suppose, and the drama of that always appealed to me as a poem. It's not a sort of relaxed, sleepy kind poem. It's a troubled, exciting, dramatic poem.
Yeah.
There is Blake's Tiger, but somehow Blake's Tiger is in a different league for me than this.
Yeah,
In the
well, probably
Forests of
most
the
people
Night.
would agree that Tiger, Tiger, Burning Bright in the Forests of the Night, what immortal,
Hand or I
or I
could
could
frame
frame
no
no fearful symmetry, what the
Yeah.
anvil, what the chain. Yes, probably most people would agree that that is a better poem. I still think this is an extremely good poem. Perhaps we should move on to the next, but it's very good. We're talking about these so much, but if we're going to talk about them this much, maybe some of the other poems won't.
Yeah.
Then we will be here sometime.
Yeah.
I won't
13 poems.
If someone explain the end of the first sentence, that gap is the grave where the tall return. What does where the tall return mean in relation to a grave? I don't understand.
I'm not sure who the tall are. I've never known that myself. The idea of people returning from the grave has all the usual monster images of vampires or zombies. But the tall, I think the tall has a sort of menacing significance to it. If you say the short ones are coming to get you, that doesn't sound as frightening as the tall ones are coming to get you.
I probably incorrectly thought it referred to some sort of resurrection, or people who were tall in their stature. They would transcend death in some respects. That was just my reaction.
Why would they transcend death? Because they're tall in stature? That seems rather...
Well, they're not tall in physical stature, tall in spirit.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Not. No, it's not the resurrection of those only above.
Oh, the grave is the grave where the tall return.
Yeah,
except that it's a warning, and so why should it be a warning if they're all good people coming back?
Youngest than imagine. That gap is great. Well,
no, I think it means the grave where bold, people end up. That's all.
But who are the tall that return? I think
the bold people, people like the rider who are striding out for adventure, and they're not seeing the grave. That is where they're going to end up.
So you mean it's returning to the grave? They're not coming out of the grave. I've never really thought about this in this detail.
Yeah. Well,
he does say where the tall return and not whence. And in fact, I think I used to think it was whence for a long time. Whence the tall return. And I think that's wrong. I think it's where. By the way, actually, just a little extra point, incidentally. Stead and I talking about this, and he said, well, it won't take you any time at all. You just have to do a few things from the internet, copy. Nearly all of these I had to type out myself, because you can't copy. I couldn't even find half of them on the internet. So there could even be misprints from me. Maybe it is whence, but I think I got it right.
I'm sorry to be still a dissonant voice here, but
no, don't.
To me, it feels like Bram Stoker on a bad day.
Well, maybe that's why.
It does.
Yeah, you are absolutely not alone. A lot of people are very critical of this poet and consider this poet's reputation is overblown. I mean,
it's like music. No, people do not agree on which songs contain the essence of beauty. I mean, that's going to be natural, and
De gustibus non disputandum.
let's move. Should we move on to the
Yeah,
next?
indeed. Let's indeed.
Okay, and right, well, you will have to choose your reader.
Indeed. Maybe Paul, would you like to read this one?
Yeah. Prayer before birth. I'm not yet born, oh hear me. Let not the blood-sucking bat or the rat or the stoat or the club-footed ghoul come near me. I'm not yet born, console me. I fear that the human race may with tall walls wall me, with strong drugs dope me, with wise lies lure me, on black racks rack me, in blood baths roll me. I'm not yet born. Provide me with water to dandle me, grass to grow for me, trees to talk to me, sky to sing to me, birds and a white light in the back of my mind to guide me. I'm not yet born. Forgive me for the sins that in me the world shall commit, my words when they speak to me, my thoughts when they think me, my treason engendered by traitors beyond me, my life when they murder by means of my hands, my death when they live me. I'm not yet born. Rehearse me in the parts I must play and the cues I must take when old men lecture me, bureaucrats hector me, mountains frown at me, lovers laugh at me, the white waves call me to folly, and the desert calls me to doom, and the beggar refuses my gift and my children curse me. I'm not yet born. Oh, hear me. Let not the man who is beast or who thinks he is God come near me. I'm not yet born. Oh, fill me with strength against those who would freeze my humanity, would dragoon me into a lethal automaton, would make me a cog in a machine, a thing with one face, a thing, and against all those who would dissipate my entirety, would blow me like thistledown hither and thither, or hither and thither, like water held in the hands would spill me. Let them not make me a stone, and let them not spill me, otherwise kill me.
Oh, thank you, Paul. Yeah, that was very well written.
Gee whiz, that was hither, thither.
You did very, very, very well. I think that "let not the man who is beast or thinks he is God come near me" is perhaps a very famous line that perhaps people know more than the complete poem. So, but
For some reason, it put my mind of a short story by some kind of obscure medieval theologian who wrote about a baby or child which was coming out of a womb. And the child of a fetus poked its head out of a womb and got so frightened that he went back into the womb, refusing to be born.
Ouch.
well, yes.
I thought that maybe the protagonist of this poem had the kind of inclination not to be born.
I thought it was a very well structured poem, a powerful poem. I responded less warmly to its general thinking. I think the phrase that forgive me for the sins that in me the world shall commit, i.e. that I myself will never do anything wrong, but it's the world.
Interesting point. Yes.
I'm pure and superior to the world. I didn't feel so comfortable.
Interesting point. I never thought of that.
But yeah, what Mick? What did you think of?
Sorry, yeah, my mic's on. Right. Yeah, I thought it was good. I'm not going to say anything, super incisive about it, but I just enjoyed, listening to it and some of the concepts. And I don't know, kind of lost for words. Really. I don't know what to add to the conversation.
Rare appearance in a poem for the rarely seen animal, the stoat. So that was nice. I'm not sure that I've ever seen a live one.
I've only seen a stoat once, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Cheers, Robert. Sorry.
Could you put it on the screen again, Michael?
Yeah.
I'd just like to have a look at it again. Yeah.
obviously, one thing in common with the other poem is the use of alliteration, which is very, very striking. But it works for sure.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it gives it a power, doesn't it? Literative thought. I mean, Michael, would you care to say anything about this? Why it's significant for you?
Well, for me, well, I suppose as I was brought up in a very, I suppose, religious education, the religious element, this poem, the prayer-like element, obviously had a very strong impression upon me, and obviously the political element as well. And I think they came together with the strength of the poem, and also have to admit perhaps the drama of it. It's almost like a prayer, and that was probably why it struck me from very early time. Again, this is a poem, I don't know when I first read it. It was a very long time ago.
It is like a prayer, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
It's a prayer for protection from someone yet born, but with the knowledge of humanity and the not just the negatives, but also the positives about creation. I think in one of the stanzas above, if you just Stead, if you could just lift it above.
The other direction.
Yeah.
In a way, it exudes pessimism. There's an emphasis on the
there it is.
evils of life.
And the positives that provide me with water, grass to grow, trees to talk to me, sky to sing to me, birds and a white light in the back of my mind to guide me. That's seems to me to be he's talking about the beauty of creation, but then contrasting it with the evils that are found.
Yes. Very much so. A very clear religious symbolism, white light at the back of my mind.
Michael, you said you were brought up in a religious, but I mean, I would say that this is quite an anti-Christian kind of prayer.
Oh, why?
It is because the emphasis on the fallen element of humanity in my opinion, rejects the incarnation, which is exactly the optimistic aspect of humanity. But I know there are versions of Christianity, like Calvinism and so on, but I mean, that's, in a way, this is not a Christian prayer at all.
It's not a Christian prayer, but I think it is a prayer, and it's a secular one. Let not the man who is beast or who thinks he is God.
He's God.
It's like a rejection of Christ.
I never thought of it like that.
Agree with what Father Frank is saying. My reaction is that it's someone who sees creation as something that is not a good thing. It doesn't seem to there doesn't seem to be any love for
it's embittered in a way.
The divinity of creation. I think that was my reaction. It's provide me with water. It's almost like demanding. It's my rights. It's someone. I want this. I want that. I don't know. That reaction is very idiosyncratic. That was my reaction. But,
my reaction was, it sounds to me like almost like a prayer to maintain innocence. I am not born yet, meaning I'm not an adult, and I'm not ready for all the nonsense out there. And I'm going to tell you what the nonsense is in the rest of the poem. But it seems to me that this person who is saying I'm not born yet is I'm an innocent person, and I don't want all the sin, if you will. And I would take it almost as a prayer in that sense.
Interesting. There is a famous Catholic prayer called the Salve Regina.
Right. Yeah.
which phrases like we weeping children of Eve, and also reference to being a veil of tears, a veil spelled
Yes, that's right.
V-A-L-E.
Mm.
Sometimes
Mm.
people mistake it with veil, like you know, we have a meaning V-E-I-L. It's a veil of tears. So if a world is a veil of tears, it is quite negative in a way. The emphasis of sin seems to me is ultimately a form of Gnosticism. It is not mainline Christianity, but it's my view.
I think it's certainly true, and it comes out in what people are saying, and that the poem is very embittered or very negative. And the positive element is there, but it's subdued in the middle, as Paul pointed out. It's just that one part, the water to dandle me, grass to grow for me. But structurally and in terms of the rhythm, I think it's a very successful poem.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's very well written. All right, should we perhaps
It's a
move on
very
to-
attractive.
Sorry,
Mm.
Paul.
No, as I say, I think it's a very attractive poem, and I'm looking forward to finding out who the poet is, because I'd like to read more of that poet's work. I think it's it's really a description of folly and the pitfalls of human nature, especially where he says, "For the sins that in me the world shall commit, my words when they speak to me, my thoughts when they think me." It's though the world is going to manipulate someone who would, as has been said, I think by Janine, someone who wished to retain their innocence. There's a sort of a bit of a almost theological theme of original sin, I think, in that the theology being that you know, it's actually the reverse. You're born innocent in every way. However, because you are born of mankind, the theology is that ipso facto you have an original sin, which is freed in baptism. You know, that's the theological view of it. But here, the poet is fearful of how his or her innocence is going to be spoiled by the worst that humanity can offer. The white waves call me to folly, and the desert calls me to doom, and the beggar refuses my gift, and my children curse me. That's that also has a bit of a Shakespearean quality to it, particularly that stanza. You remember that when all alone, when Shakespeare in one of the sonnets talks about when all alone I something my fate.
Ah, yes, I know the one you mean. Yeah,
I think it's the 64th sonnet or whatever. But, it just that stanza there, I think, has strong resonance with that despondent Shakespeare.
Yes.
My take on the theology of this, I mean, there's people here who probably know more about this than me, but it comes off as Gnostic to me. It's a pre-existing spirit that's about to be trapped in the material world, and this is not a good thing. So that was my take on it. It sounds Gnostic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one thing that clearly the writer is using, which assuming it's a he wouldn't be able to enjoy without the world is the language in which it's expressed. Babies born in circumstances without the interaction with other human beings do not learn to speak in later life with any kind of fluency. It's something we need to develop our skills to master language at a young age. So that's something that the world does give us. It gives us the ability to articulate our thoughts much better than we would do if we were individuals just living outside of society anyway. Should we move on to the next one?
Yeah, let's move on. Indeed.
I think the waves that each of the poems is curating seem good to enjoy and to spend time to.
I'll send all the poems to people by email, by the way.
I don't think we're going to get through all of them.
I'm beginning to wonder.
But that's good.
Yeah.
Poetry is not, you can't eat.
Yeah.
But this is good. We're enjoying it.
Yeah.
Let's go to that. It's slightly different in tone, I think.
I think it is.
Since people are talking about time, I don't have more than beyond the hour to stay. I don't know how long the rest of you are staying. Can we just continue this next time? I think everyone's enjoying this.
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
I think we may may stop at the fifth one, the fifth and a half, or the sixth one would be, wouldn't it? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but people seem to have a lot to say, so that's good. Yeah.
There will be a recording, AJ, that you can look at to catch up the bits that you might miss.
Okay, maybe Janine?
One art. The art of losing isn't hard to master. So many things seem filled with the intent to be lost that their loss is no disaster. Lose something every day, except the fluster of lost door keys, the hour badly spent. The art of losing isn't hard to master. The practice losing farther, losing faster, places and names, and where it was you meant to travel. None of these things will bring disaster. I lost my mother's watch and look, my last or next to last of 3 loved houses went. The art of losing isn't hard to master. I lost 2 cities, lovely ones, and vaster, some realms I owned, 2 rivers, a continent. I missed them, but it wasn't a disaster. Even losing you, the joking voice, a gesture I love, I shan't have lied. It's evident the art of losing's not too hard to master, though it may look like, write it like disaster.
Yes.
Yeah, pretty much reflects my feeling exactly.
Good.
Just when you think things are bad, they get worse. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, it isn't hard to lose.
I mean, I think it's some consolation for the excessive fear which I at times suffer from of losing quite unimportant things, because it's like it's a sign that one's losing one's grip on reality or one's mind, and maybe this is some encouragement to accept that as one of the features of the human condition. I don't know.
Well, I love the universality of the title with what the poem says. One art. It's the art that anybody can do, everybody does.
Yeah.
But, I love that. I love the title.
Yeah,
like welding, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
I like it.
It's saying just go with the flow, really, isn't it?
It is, although the last word is disaster, and I think it's not. It's a cheery poem, but at the same time, I think not entirely. There is that element that this person is trying to console themselves for something that very terrible that's happened, and always have to force themselves to write it down. And by the way, that italics in small letters is exactly how it's written in the original poem. You know, write it. There's a sudden element of you're a student, you're an academic, write this down. So you keep control of yourself.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, Mike, it's a way of trying to make oneself feel better after losing something that one really didn't want to lose.
Yes.
And probably almost all of us have experienced losing something that was important to us. Yeah. So yeah, it's a poem that fills a gap in human experience, perhaps. Yeah.
I think there's an element almost of a parent consoling a child, this person talking to themselves and saying, no, no, it's not as bad as all that, you know.
Yeah.
But I think the last stanza, even losing you, whether it's through divorce, death, or you're just running off with the milkman, the joking voice, a gesture I love, I shan't have lied. So even if you lose something that's very, very precious to you, the poet hasn't lied.
Those two cities, yeah.
Yeah, and the contrast between these immense things, which so it seems to the person, I mean, probably the person didn't have 2 rivers and 3 houses and so, but everything seemed enormous to that person. But from another perspective, it's not as big at all, you know, and you worry about losing a watch or something, but in the view of the life of the universe of countless billion millennia, it's not such a big deal.
Yeah, but the person probably was moving, so the 3 houses were houses that the person has lived in. And
It could be, you might be right. Yes, obviously it could be that. Yes, yeah. Yes, and look, my last or next to last of 3 loved houses went. Next to last because, yes, you're probably right there, actually.
What one might see it as being an invocation to a detachment from the things of the world. But I don't know whether it is, because it doesn't seem to have any indication of what detachment, what pleasure detachment leads to. But I don't know, possibly it is in that direction. Detachment is a good thing.
Maybe, I mean, maybe it's just sort of comment, but you know, it's almost like someone who's trying to look on the bright side. Yeah, there are all these losses, but at the end of the day, their loss is no disaster. So look on the bright side. It maybe, you know, it's a bit too homely because it's not the wisdom, but yes, it does have a certain appeal, yeah, to some extent.
What I would like to do is ask the author, what would you consider a disaster?
Yeah,
if none of these things are disastrous, what in God's name would you consider? You know.
Yeah, good question. Yes, what would it be a disaster? Yes, well,
it's
losing
an
someone we really love.
It's the affirmation of the ephemerality of everything, that nothing is going to last. We're all going to die. We're all going to lose whatever we have.
Right.
And it's an acceptance of that. And at the end, although it does end with the word disaster, though it may look like disaster, it's not that it is a disaster. It's the way of life.
I think that's it. It may look like disaster, but it's not.
Or do you think it's ironic the repetition of the statement, you know, it wasn't a disaster, it's not a disaster? Do you think that's ironic that it actually is, but or do you think it's genuine, Michael?
I think it's someone striving to convince themselves or to console themselves that it isn't such a disaster as it is, and the person does suffer from it, but at the same time, another part of that person is saying, relax, or it isn't the disaster that you think it is. So it's almost a person speaking to themselves, I think, in the poem. And being humorous, which is one way of consoling yourself or other people. I mean, there is a very humorous element in it. I mean, it's quite a funny poem, really. It's not hilariously funny, but it's amusing. It
Mm.
has that sort of jocular element.
Almost
in it.
like a parent
Yes,
reassuring.
yes,
a
yes,
child
yes,
that's in
yeah,
panic.
absolutely. I think so. Yes,
Mm.
it's
Yeah,
not
I
that
like
bad,
it.
dear. You'll get another house or something like that. Yeah.
I'm sure if it was given to an actor with the right voice and manner, it could be very amusing. Yeah. All right, should we move on?
Mhm. Well, it's
Mm.
funny that you just said that, Stead. I mean, I don't want to give too much away, but I mean, this poem became enormously popular because an actor did recite this poem in a fairly well-known film.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Really?
so, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I can understand why it was chosen then. Yeah. Makes sense. Should we move on?
Yes, by all means.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a very short one indeed. Yeah. AJ, would you like to read this one? It's very short.
Okay, hold on, let me make that bigger on my side. Okay. Days. What are days for? Days are where we live. They come, they wake us, time and time over. They are happy to be in. Where can we live but days? Ah, solving that question brings the priest and the doctor in their long coats running over the fields. I hope you don't ask me what the hell this means, because
Oh, actually, I thought it's one of the simplest of all of the poems here. It's interesting.
it reminds me of Kamala Harris talking about the passage of time.
Okay.
That is a magisterial put down, I think.
It is indeed a magisterial put down. Yeah. Okay, what do other people? How do they react to this?
Yeah, so this is quite a pleasing short poem. It is like best compared with the previous. I thought, bring the priest and the doctor, if you like. The priest is the doctor of the soul, the doctor in the doctor of the body.
Yes.
That I thought, although it would not fit in, because in a way it is quite a philosophical question, isn't it? What are
Existential.
days for?
Yes.
So the philosopher would also be someone who would be able to, actually, philosophers are very good at asking questions, not very good at giving answers very often. But a philosopher like a Stoic, for example, an ancient philosopher of a kind, would give you an answer to that, what days are for. So not a modern philosopher in the academic sense, no, he wouldn't be able to tell you. I mean, someone like Heidegger would say, be authentic. So the days is to be authentic, to affirm, discover your authenticity. But it would, you know, the priest, even the word priest, philosopher would not fit in. But it's a pleasing little poem, yeah.
But it doesn't seem to exclude the possibility that we may yet have something that transcends the days. So that seems quite nice.
Yeah, well, it's an open question, isn't
Yes,
it? But yeah,
light touch.
I think though we shouldn't miss the humor of it. I mean, I think it's also a very funny poem. What are days for? Days where we live. I mean, it's the kind of simplicity of it. It's so it's sort of speaking the obvious. You know, there's somebody very, very philosophical. What are days for? It's the days are where we live, and they come and they wake us. You know, wake up. It's day again, time and time over, and they're to be happy in. I mean, it's so simple. And then where can we live but days? I mean, that's true as well. You know, you've got no choice anyway. And that question, and then this superb image of the priest and doctor in their long coats, definitely comical, running over the fields because someone's dying. I think it's a terribly funny poem. Makes me laugh.
It's the right length to be turned into a song, perhaps, with the right music, maybe.
Not quite sure. Yes, okay.
Called to my mind the. Oh, I'm sorry.
I think, yeah, Hewitt, I can see your hand. You're being very, very
technically correct with these.
But yeah, please go ahead.
I think that it's a highly anti-intellectual and anti-seriousness poem. It's a contemptuous poem, and I think it's a frivolous poem, not in a good sense, but in it belittles profundity and thought and deep reflection and tragedy and so on and so forth. And I think it's a trivial poem. I like the last one, but I don't like this one.
But I think it's interesting because, in fact, what you're saying very much what I'm saying, only that for you that's very negative, and for me it's very positive. But yes, it is sort of mocking seriousness in a way. I think that's right. It's
Well,
mocking, and I think that's characteristic of this poet. As I say, I would stress again, these poems are all very typical of their poets. I think it's not, oh, this is unusual, the poet had a funny, cynical day or something. No, this poet is criticized exactly what you said, Hewitt. If you recognize it, then maybe this is exactly what some people don't like about this poet.
It's a bit of a long shot. It reminds me a bit of certain aspects of Rupert Brooke.
Really? That astonishes
Really?
me. Certainly not in a million years, Rupert Brooke. Yeah, no, I mean, it isn't, definitely not. No, I'm very surprised by it.
I don't think, I mean, perhaps he's not really a poet of such stature to be called a poet, but he's got something of the quality of the, well, of the amusing things that Spike Milligan used to write.
Spike Milligan, yeah.
Yeah, which had that.
Tell me, little woodworm eating through the wood, surely all that sawdust can't do you any good.
Yeah, that
Heavens, little woodworm, you've eaten all the chairs, so that's why poor old grandpa's sitting on the stairs.
If I were to
yeah, it's good we rehearsed that, wasn't it? Good we rehearsed that, yeah.
If I were to hazard to guess the author, I would say Emily Dickinson.
No.
Probably wrong.
You are wrong, yes.
There's a flavour of Emily Dickinson here.
Maybe in the style a little bit, yes. Yes, but not, I would have thought, in the sentiment. But not that I've read much Emily Dickinson, so I have to admit I haven't read much Emily Dickinson, so I've been careful there.
Janine has her hand up.
I see people are straining now to guess who the poet is.
Oh,
perhaps we
I
should
know.
come to that soon. Go on to the second.
Janine has her hand up.
Yeah, please.
I do have my hand up. Mainly because every day I read the Yahoo blurbies, just the blurbies, not the articles. But there's always something about, 35% of the people, if they don't eat red meat, they'll live 15% longer. My point is this: the priest takes care of the hereafter. The doctor tries to extend the years that you live. And I think the poem is saying, you only live one day at a time. And perhaps your emphasis on the hereafter and living long years is misspent, when you'd be better off just being happy the day that you're in. Because this pet peeve, the conflicting medical junk that we get, junk science about nutrition and diseases and all this nonsense. And every day, everybody's life just goes one day at a time. I think it's meaningful in that sense. It's a short way of saying live for today and forget about the rest of it.
Yeah. Michael's got something to say.
It made me, of course, think of Aristotle and what's the purpose of life is happiness. And that's what he says in it. What are the days for? And the answer is where is that?
They're to be happy.
To be happy in.
Yeah.
But Aristotle wouldn't have attacked the doctor and the priest, would he?
That's all part of life, and the priest is to make us happy in the, maybe even in this life, but especially in the afterlife. The doctor is to keep us healthy and happy in this life. I mean, it's comical, the ending. Of course,
it is comical, and the priest and the doctor don't really really
Where-
explain why we live the days.
Yeah.
That's the other sort of funny thing. I mean, I think this poem is just so funny, and their long coats. I got this image of them both
Yeah.
running from different sides.
Fields.
I start laughing again.
While
The
they
priest and the
wearing long
doctor,
coats,
terribly
I've never
self-important
noticed
with long coats running over the fields.
Mick,
Not the
Mick,
Monty Python.
Mick has, please, Mick.
Yeah, well, obviously, I know who the poet is. I don't think we're supposed to say, are we? But I mean,
No, you're not supposed to say no.
no, certainly knowing who it is. I mean, he was an arch cynic and kind of agnostic, and I think all the persona he put across was.
Yeah.
And also, I kind of think he was. He very much interrogated poetry as a medium in the time he was writing, and I think that's a lot of the kind of what you might say frivolity. Is, you know, that's probably one of the reasons that it comes across like that. But certainly within the collection that it's published in, I think it fits very well. You know, I've always liked this poem. You know, I think it's good.
Yes, it could almost be what is poetry for? Poetry is where we live. And yeah, it's to be happy in. You know, don't against it's a sort of yeah.
It reminds me very much. I'm not going to say his name, but it reminds me very much of a precursor of someone like Morrissey, who kind of talks this kind of kitchen sink type drama. But Morrissey would put it in song form. This chap, you know, put it into, you know, into poetic form in the 1960s. And I think he went very much against the grain by doing that. But yeah, I'm a big fan of him, you know, and I do like this poem.
It seemed to, for its size, generated quite a bit of generally positive reaction, except for Herod's demurs. Sorry,
Yeah,
Michael.
well, I mean,
sorry.
I was going to say, I mean, the poetic imagery really comes in with the long coats, and you know, because coming up to that, it's almost like prosaic, isn't it? Kind of flippant.
Yes, yeah, and then suddenly these
poetic
priests
imagery,
start laughing again.
Yeah.
The priest and the doctor running over the fields.
Yeah, it's really good, really good.
True, it's true. There's that the physical image coming suddenly at the end after this very simplistic sort of philosophical posing of the eternal questions. You know, what is life for? And he doesn't say what is life for, does he? He says what are days for?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
Which is that is the key idea, I suppose, is not thinking about life, thinking about the form in which we experience. Yeah, it can do.
Yes, I mean there is an element almost of carpe diem, you know, seize the time.
Right.
Seize the time. On the other hand, I was thinking of, I don't know if you remember the film The Four Feathers, the really early one with Ralph Richardson, I think. And there is a scene there which always engraved in my mind, in which the young man who's accused of being a coward, who's been given a white feather, goes to Egypt and tells a native doctor he wants to disguise himself as a dervish in order to show he's not a coward. And the native doctor says, well, so what? Be a coward and be happy. But of course, the young man replies, well, I have been a coward, but I was not happy.
Not happy with it, yeah.
But, you know, besides you being happy, you know, you can be taken from different angles.
Would you like to move on to the next?
Yes,
one? Let's do the next one.
Probably 6 would be half, wouldn't it, if we did 6?
Yeah, I think that would be, definitely not more than that.
Stead, you haven't read, I think.
No. Walking away. It is 18 years ago, almost to the day, a sunny day with leaves just turning. The touchlines new ruled since I watched you play. Your first game of football, then, like a satellite, wrenched from its orbit, go drifting away. Behind a scatter of boys, I can see you walking away from me towards the school, with the pathos of a half-fledged thing set free into a wilderness, the gate of one who finds no path where the path should be. That hesitant figure eddying away like a winged seed loosened from its parent stem, as something I never quite grasped to convey about nature's give and take, the scorching ordeals which fire one's irresolute clay. I have had worse partings, but none that so gnaws at my mind still. Perhaps it is roughly saying what God alone could perfectly show. Our selfhood begins with the walking away, and love is proved in the letting go.
Mm.
Mm. Yeah, very beautifully expressed, the idea there.
Beautifully expressed, a very simple poem, really. I mean, I think obviously what it's about is obvious.
It's true. It's true. Yeah, very impressive, I think. In its use of language, the way that some lines followed on, others.
Yes, I think it's got enjambment, isn't it? Which you missed actually.
Yeah.
I think we go drifting away behind a scatter of boys.
Well, it's well put together, enjoyable to read and to listen to. I think.
I think it's a beautiful poem, actually. Mm.
It is a beautiful poem. Absolutely think so.
Which doesn't demand attention, but just states what it does with skill, but not ostentation.
Yes, it expresses very well, I think, the debate that the parent has between the fact of not wanting to let your child go and the fact that it's a natural thing that you have to do, and that tension, and then the acceptance that it is the natural thing to do. First of all, the negative element at the beginning, which is the mechanical, the satellite wrenched from its orbit, and then the acceptance that it's something natural later on. It's just a letting go. It's the give and take of nature. I think it's a wonderful poem.
Well, speaking as a mother, I found it exceptionally poignant. Reminded me of when my son left to go into the military, and that was gut-wrenching. I really enjoyed this, yeah.
I don't want to clear anybody's pitch, but I think it's difficult to dislike this poem. It's just such a gentle, good poem in every sense, and so well written.
And it's wise in what it says.
Yes,
that's the key thing. Michael, that is a full stop, is it, behind the scatter of boys?
Ah, now you're putting me really on the.
Not a comma. It's.
Oh. Let me just check. I've got most of these poems with me in a book. You know, I did have to type these out. If that's of great concern to you, I can check that. I think it's correct.
I'm not being.
I think it's a full stop.
I think it is a full stop. Give if people can bear with me just very shortly. You can go on talking. I'll find out.
Well, I think the wrench from its orbits go drifting away behind a scatter of boys. I think it's a continuation of the of it.
Yes, well observed, Jean. Yeah. Yes, well observed. I was thinking of that, but so there's no full stop after away. So yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
It is a full stop. Yes.
Yeah. Did you hear what Jean said?
No, I was away. I was getting the books because you as I say, I did. There could be errors because I think practically every poem here I actually had to type out. I couldn't copy and paste.
She correctly observed that it's the conclusion to the sentence started in the previous stanza that doesn't end with a full stop.
Oh yes, absolutely. It's the enjambment. I think it's the technical term,
I
which you missed as when you read, which is quite understandable when you see it for the first time. It's go drifting away behind a scatter of boys. Indeed,
I didn't expect
and I think the poet,
to jump stanzas, but sorry, Jane. Yeah.
I think the poet did that on purpose, so that behind the scatter of boys, I think is almost sounds poetic in form. I realize it's a poem and it's supposed to sound poetic, but I think purposely that was done to highlight behind a scatter of boys. And when children leave, particularly boys, it's almost as though they are joining another clan, right, of maleness. And I think that was the point of the poet doing that. I don't know, because I don't know the person, but that would be my guess.
Yes, I think there's also the element that there's the wishing to control, and then the control is being lost, and that's shown in the enjambment, go drifting away behind a scatter of boys. It's 18 years ago, almost to the day, a sunny day with leaves just turning, and of course this change in nature. And then this idea of ruling, the touchline's new rules, since I watched you play your first game of football. And then the satellite, so this is all the control, the mechanical, and the satellite is wrenched from its orbit and goes drifting away behind a scatter of buoys, so that the control is no longer there, even shown in the enjambment, go drifting away behind a scatter of buoys, which he later then accepts as natural, but doesn't at the beginning of the poem. That's how I would understand it.
Yeah.
But of course, there is the danger. He's a half-fledged thing set free into a wilderness, the gate of one who finds no path where the path should be.
Well, but it says, I can see you walking away from me
Yeah,
towards
yeah.
school, which
Yes,
it almost implies like a boarding school or
could be. Yes, yeah,
college. In other words,
yeah.
the little boy is gone, and now the man is has to take form.
Yeah, and
You
it's
see it
nature's give
man
and
or
take, the
woman.
giving of a child, and then the child goes. Yeah.
I would like to know who wrote this poem.
Well, you will at
Yes.
the end.
You will.
I'd like to know whether it was a man or a woman.
What do you think, Paul?
Well, initially I thought it was a male to male. Now I'm not so sure after listening to Janine. I think it could be just as easily a mother.
Mm-hmm.
If no one has any other comments, we move on to
Mhm.
what I think will be the final
The last five, yeah.
Steve.
Mhm.
for this afternoon. This is yet again another change of diction here.
This is the only poem that I didn't, in a sense, grow up with. I would sort of put that in. I was thinking of another poem by this poet, and then I thought, obviously I'm right, that with conversation and everything, it would all take too much time. So I chose a shorter poem by this poet. This is the only poem that I didn't really know before choosing poems for this. Okay, so it's not a poem that I'm so familiar. I like it though, but it's, yeah, and I think it's typical of this poet. So I don't know who is not. I don't know who's not. Who would like to read?
I think that Mick Heward.
Oh, Mick hasn't read. No, Mick, you haven't read. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
give it a go. Yeah.
Make sure the mic's on. Right, okay. Right, song not there. I went to the cupboard. I opened the door. I cried to my people. Oh, it's not there. How long did you think it would last? Said the cook. Said the butler. Does anyone care? But where is it? Where is it? Oh, it's not there. Not there to be saved. Not there to be saved. If I am saved, it will not be there. I ran to a plate, to a pig, to a dish. An old china pig, a plate to a pear. Said, to find it, oh, I will look anywhere. Said, anywhere, anywhere, look anywhere. Said the plate as it laughed, yes, look anywhere. There's as good as here, there's as good as there. For where shall you look to be saved? I said to my people, the plate to the cupboard, the pig on its platter, the pear. Oh, where is my salvation? Oh, it's not anywhere. You break in my head like a dish, said the plate. A pig, said the pig. A pear, said the pear. Not there to be saved, go not there to be saved. If you're saved, it will not be there.
Whether it be George Dupree. It has a bit of an A.A. Milne quality, don't you think?
Oh, yes.
Yes. The kind of madness of children's rhymes. Absolutely. I don't know if I'm giving too much away to say I was thinking the poem that I thought of was a dialogue with the devil, but it's too long and I chose this one. But I think there's still this dialogue and this madness is still there. It's a little bit of a crazy poet.
Does anyone have any sort of strong reaction to this? Any thoughts? Anyone? I might not be able to see hands, so please speak.
It feels a bit like Lewis Carroll in the poem about I said to the fishes.
Yes, there is something of that, isn't? Yes. Yeah, and that madness as well, the Jabberwocky and so on.
Mm.
Yeah.
Heward, what's your view? Does this find favor with you, or do you find it superficial, or what's your reaction?
I think it's attempting to be amusing. I'm not sure quite whether it succeeds, but it's certainly making the effort. But it also, I detect the hostility to seriousness in it because of the ending, the anti-Christian element in the ending of it. Oh, where is my salvation? If you are saved, it will not be there. So it's either hiddenly very serious indeed, and it's seriously asking the question, where is my salvation? Or else it's dismissing it. I suppose it's a mark of its merit that there's an ambiguity there. If we take Empson's great book seriously, 7 Types of Ambiguity. So I have mixed feelings about it, but I certainly I'm not disposed to dismiss it in the way that I have dismissed at least 2 of the others.
Perhaps acceptable if I do put in a small biographical note that this person, I think, suffered under severe depression, and there's still a debate about whether the early death was a suicide or an accident, but a lot of people think it was suicide.
Paul, do you have any thoughts about this as you're up quite late?
No, I don't, Stead. Again, I'm intrigued to know who the poet is. I agree with Heward that it has a Lewis Carroll feel about it. I was trying to think of the A.A. Milne poem about the king and who wanted a little bit of butter for his bread. And and the first stanza reminded me very much of the king who was plaintively just wanting some butter for his bread. How long do you think it would last, said the cook, said the butler, does anyone care? But where is it? Where is it? Oh, it's not there. That sort of sense of frustration that some of those A.A. Milne poems reflected.
Yes, I think you said you're intrigued to know who it is. I think in a sense it's an intriguing poem. I have a feeling that if somebody explained it to me, I would enjoy it more. Or is it just a trick and there's nothing to explain? But I feel there probably is, especially because I know some of the poets' other poems and they're easier to grasp, and there definitely is something there.
I find it to have the quality of several non sequiturs. Therefore, I find my interest. I tend to feel there's possibly nothing that much behind it, just a series of random things that I don't have a very positive reaction to it. To be probably the least of the 6.
Yes. Yeah.
When I first heard it read, I thought to myself, song, not there. I'm the Eggman, I'm the Walrus, cuckoo, cuckoo, remind me of Paul McCartney.
Yes, yes.
I was going to say, could Michael possibly sneak in a Paul McCartney here?
Well, yeah,
yes. But that's what it reminded me of, something psychedelic.
Yeah.
Well, there is the obvious religious element of where's my salvation, how will you be saved, and it's not where you think it will be. So I'm open-minded on this poem, but I'm sympathetic to people who have a negative reaction to it because I don't immediately grasp it myself. But I can assure you that there are other poems by this poet that one can have a more immediate. But I think he's a, or I shouldn't say he, I've given it a bit away. But anyway, this poet is definitely a difficult poet.
Well, I mean, I think why is he looking for his salvation in a plate or with a pig or a dish? I mean, that just seems an odd thing to entertain. So yeah, that doesn't draw me in really. I mean, now that is number 6, and I think it would be good to call a halt and review the authorship question. I think that would be nice.
Okay.
So
yeah, as I said, I'm not going to make it as a competition as Stead obviously feared at the beginning. I won't do that, but it's interesting for people personally to make their own notes, obviously. So the first one, where are you going, said reader to writer, that value is.
Yeah, and we can see whether knowing who the author is gives us much about the poem. It expands our understanding and appreciation of it. So
okay, so the first poem is by W.H. Auden, and reasonably well-known poem among the many poems by W.H. Auden, and one of the earlier ones, I think. I'm not quite sure when it was written, but definitely one of his earlier poems. I remember somebody wrote about W.H. Auden. It was a poem of great promise, and the promise was never realized. I think it's Sunday Times, and I thought, very unfair. How much better does he have to be to have realized his talents? But anyway,
yeah.
And he did write in that, this is the night train crossing the border, bringing the check and the postal order. That's it. That was very much, as I went out the street, the fields of harvest wheat, was it? Can't remember exactly how that one goes, but yes, I mean, that was very much in his style. So I don't know how many people knew that, but that was W.H. Auden.
I mean, he did with Paul Taylor a translation of the Edic.
Yes, well known for that.
I don't. It's not. It's not outstandingly powerful for its literary brilliance. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's quite good on a few of the verses that are difficult to put into words, into English words. That's to say, from the Old Norse. But yeah, it's actually much better than many translations. Yeah, it's much better, much more readable. Michael, do you know that Michael in en France?
Well, I've actually liked them all, but I'm not that much of a poet reader. I don't have the time, but I enjoy it, and I like the humor element that somehow seems to be part of poetry.
Yeah, I just have to have it actually.
Yeah, although I don't suppose the humorous element is very strong here, but but yes, I know what you mean. I'm glad you enjoyed it. But actually, Michael, I mean, I'm not going to pin lots of people down on this, so don't worry. But Michael, you knew that poem, did you? That it was by W.H. Auden?
No.
Oh, that's interesting.
Okay. Yeah, it would be good maybe to have a Soteria about him, really, to.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, yes, yeah. He received an enormous boost, of course, because of the reading of one of his poems in 4 Weddings and a Funeral, which I think people who publish poetry are always hoping this sort of thing happens, that somebody reads a poem, because then sales for a short time afterwards shoot up, for poetry generally, and then they fall back again. It was like Crocodile Dundee was an enormous boost for Australian tourism.
Yes.
Really
I
was.
wonder what poet you were going to cite, made an appearance in Crocodile Dundee, but yeah.
No, but these things really have an effect on people.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Right.
So, Prayer Before Birth is by Louis MacNeice. and probably one of the less well-known poets of that sort of, I
Again,
suppose,
Michael,
vaguely Louis MacNeice.
McNeice.
MacNeice, who I think was he originally Scottish? I'm not
I
quite
think
sure
he
on that.
was
Bellet.
an Irish, but I might
Northern Ireland.
I
Then.
might be wrong. I
Mm,
mean,
no, you might be right. I'm not exactly sure.
he was a fine writer, fine writer.
Well, this is the only poem of his that's really stuck in my mind. I've read other poems by him, and they haven't had that same effect on me. Didn't he die extremely young? I think because he did a lot of radio plays, didn't he? I think so. And he died. He got a cold because he was interested in the sound effects for one of his radio plays, and from the cold he got pneumonia, and he was advised to see a doctor. And it was, I think he was about 40 or something.
Wow.
Okay, it's steady. You all right there?
Yeah, I just thought
Seem to be battling with something.
I'd have.
Oh, you're getting a book. I've got it.
Avenel companion to English literature by my side, just to look up any details like that, so I can well, rather than use the internet.
The internet, yeah.
I think it's nice to use so I'll just try to get the.
I'm not saying that for certain. I have a feeling that's the case.
Yeah, it would be good to get that. No, I mean he didn't die that
Then
young.
maybe I'm confusing him with someone else. I thought he did.
1907 he was born, and 63 he died.
Oh, okay. So he wasn't that young.
Yeah.
I got him wrong. Did he die though from pneumonia?
Born in Belfast. Born in Belfast.
Yeah, Northern Ireland. Okay, so I got that.
Yeah. Let's have a look. I've just seen this sentence, which I will read if you permit me. He was always a true craftsman and never a mere spokesman of the zeitgeist. His submerged doubts and depressions lay a solid foundation for the glittering iceberg surfaces that appear on his page. I think that's quite a nice thing to read in a entry about. Anyway.
Yeah. Okay. So the next poem.
Sorry.
That's all right. Which was cited in a film. I don't know how many people got this as a poem by Elizabeth Bishop. One of her more famous ones, and became very famous. I can't remember the name of the film.
Did you say the name of the poet?
Elizabeth Bishop.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Number 3. And probably because of the film, which I've forgotten which film it was, it's probably her most famous poem.
I think I have a distinct prejudice against female writers, against poetesses, so it's good for me not to have known that, I think, beforehand.
Right, but what did you say about it? I've already forgotten. What did you say?
Well, I think my reaction would have been.
No, but what was your reaction? Not knowing. 20 minutes ago. People remember Stead's reaction.
It was more positive
than it would have been. That of course is very interesting, isn't it? Wow, yeah. The prejudices could get in the way like that. That is very interesting. Yeah.
However, I mean, this is a prejudice that I'm aware of, and I kind of water it from time to time. So.
Well, you water it by reading poems that you don't know and then discovering that they're.
No, I water it by casting any information that supports it, or any.
What is there about the female poetry angle?
My tongue is slightly in my cheek here. I'm not tight.
Well, no, because I have the same prejudice. I don't find fiction literature and this poem that we read about the children leaving really hit home because of my personal experience. But it's also been my personal experience that many poems written by women are silly.
Yeah.
mundane. I don't know.
Yeah.
Would you have said that poem by Elizabeth Bishop is silly?
Oh, but I'm sorry. Could you?
Is that poem by Elizabeth Bishop? Is it silly? Again, I haven't got a short memory. Perhaps I am getting Alzheimer's. I can't
Well,
remember what people said at the time. Now I can't
Yeah.
remember how you reacted.
Go back to number 3,
Sure.
Mike,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I can see that. Yeah,
About losing
one
and
we're talking
stuff
about.
And
That's the one I
Janine,
read.
you
That's
said
the one I read.
what actually would be a disaster to this person. So you did indicate that maybe it's based on not thinking through the content of the poem by not really having a sense of what would be a disaster at all, which is contrary to normal thinking.
Well,
Because some things are genuine disasters. The word disaster has a
when I
meaning.
read it, I thought Dorothy Parker. I thought about a more broad, sophisticated kind of dismissal
Yeah,
of,
yeah.
of things like tragedy and important things. And I don't know how things are in other countries, but I know in America, many women, not all, but many women have spaghetti for brains in terms of thinking of important subject matter. And I always equate poetry with kind of a deeper meaning, even if they address things like, what is the day for? Why do we have them? Women aren't particularly philosophical in America. So I do have that prejudice.
This
I hate to admit it, it's true.
This is a stoical attitude. It's quite
Yes.
philosophical in that respect.
Stoicism is a nice word to use.
Yeah. I don't see it as spaghetti brains, but
I
Not at all. Although one might, now that one says, "Oh, I know that it's written by a woman," see how more obviously perhaps that it's very much concentrated on practical day-to-day things and it's not exactly talking about life, death with capital letters. It's just these small things and losing. And one might say that is perhaps more typical of a woman. I think it's a relatively easy poem I think I would have guessed it was a woman if I didn't know the poem, but I have to be careful there because I did know the poem, so I would be cheating. But to me, it does look a bit like a poem. If you give me all these poems and said, Michael, and I didn't know them, one of these poems is written by a woman. I can tell you, by the way, more than one of them is, but one of these poems is written by a woman. This would be the one I would have chosen.
Well, somebody mentioned Kamala Harris, and I immediately thought of, if you think of the significance of the passage of time, then you think of and that got me off on.
Oh, that was your comment. Yes, I remember. Yeah, yes. Yeah, okay.
So many things are funny these days to me.
Okay, well, this one probably, I would guess it's the one that most people recognized. I know Mike certainly recognized it. I'm pretty sure Stead recognized it. It's by Philip Larkin.
Oh,
Okay.
should have gotten it.
I can say that in Germany, quite a lot of people know Philip Larkin from those deeply cynical lines. They fuck you up, your mum and dad. They do not mean to, but they do. I mean, I cannot say how many Germans I've met who know no English poetry, but they know those two lines. My wife knows those two lines, and my previous two German girlfriends both knew those lines.
Actually, the lines that I remember by Larkin, I don't know Larkin. I like him in general. I'm not very know that I remember the kind of again the line. I loathe them, the so-called working class. I would have them eating grass.
Yeah, that's the kind of.
That's again. It's a very wicked kind of.
Well, he's quite wicked indeed. Yeah, yes.
I think he was a very screwed up man.
I think you're being too soft on him. I think that Oscar Wilde's aphorism about sentimentality applies very well to this poem. Oscar Wilde said, "The sentimentalist is always a cynic at heart. Indeed, sentimentality is simply the bank holiday of cynicism." I think this poem is a bank holiday of cynicism.
Meaning he's sentimental at heart.
Meaning he's cynical at heart.
Yes.
And he's passing it off as an easygoing sentimentality. It's actually very hostile to life, in my view.
Okay, I don't see it like that at all.
Mm.
Okay, but anyway, yeah, that you don't like Philip laughing is quite, yeah, a lot of people don't. A lot of people
I do.
don't. And this one is by Walking Away by Cecil Day Lewis, who wrote a lot of fine poetry, I think, but this one is particularly touching.
What was the first name on that, Michael?
Cecil Day Lewis.
Cecil.
Well, the Day Lewis is a with a hyphen. It's a
Day Lewis.
hyphenated Day
Yeah.
Lewis. Yeah, it's a rather strange name actually. Day Lewis. I think one of his sons is an actor or something.
Daniel
Anyway.
Day-Lewis,
Oh,
yeah.
But,
Daniel
not
Day-Lewis,
the
right.
one. Not I think
Oh.
it's the other one, Sean. That
Oh, okay.
referred to. Yeah, yeah.
He was also born in Ireland.
Right, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Was Cecil Day Lewis gay?
No, I don't think so.
Oh,
Not being at all. Any
I
kind.
I thought there was a gay subtext here, but obviously I'm wrong.
I don't think so at all. Not at all, that as far as I'm aware. Yeah. He was, I know, sort of, if we talk about fun facts, he was a poet laureate to about 1972. And another poet, Jack Clemo, wrote in one of his poems that Cecil Day Lewis had told him that Clemo's poetry, which was so religious, had brought him to some kind of religious faith towards the end of his life. Just so sort of interesting fact. And I think this must have been one of his later poems, because his son from here obviously must be about 28 when he wrote the poem. I mean, if it's 18 years ago almost to the day, and the son is about 10 or 9 then, so he must have been about 28 years after that. So presumably this is one of the later poems.
He is the father of Daniel Day-Lewis as well.
Mm.
This guide to literature unusually gives opinions, and this is quite interesting. Although in the poems of his more recent years, although there's little technical experiment, Day-Lewis has consolidated his position as one of the finest and most civilized lyric poets of his age. So that's quite a high accolade, I think.
It is.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, and finally,
yes, and this poem is by the American poet Randall Jarrell, who is probably better known for his war poetry, his song about the pilot killed in the gun turret. It's a rather grim poem, and all his poems I think are rather difficult. And he died, I'll be careful about saying quite young now, but I know he died violently. He was hit by a car, and the question is whether he deliberately walked in front of the car. And he wrote the dialogue with the devil, and that girl in the library, which is a eroticized poem, but also a very speculative and strange poem. And he's the poet here who I'm probably absolutely least familiar with, but I do have his poems, and yeah, I thought this was kind of amusing, but I'm not sure if it's as intelligent as it pretends to be. I have my doubts about it. But reading the dialogue with the devil needs to be read 2 or 3 times, and one begins to see that there is more intelligence there than there appears to be at first reading. I don't know if that's true of this poem, but I would like somebody to explain this poem to me who understands it very well and knows what's behind it and shows to me that it's not just a joke, because this poem is the only poem to my mind which maybe is a bit of a trick, but I don't think it is. Anyway, that's what it is. Randall Jarrell.
Excuse me.
You also wrote a novel,
Slow
I think.
down or something. Yeah. Maybe it's me.
What?
Oh, just I can't read the whole poem.
Oh yeah, it's Stead.
sorry,
Can you
sorry,
scroll it up
sorry.
a bit? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it quite fits on them. Might have to reduce the size. Yes, that covers the whole poem, I think. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's it. That's good. I'm just scanning the entry in this work to see if there's any
Right.
useful fact I can adduce. Oh, okay. I'll just read its final sentence. Gerald stood for a level of critical integrity and independent poetry, which is rare in a culture which tended towards inimical groups. So take that.
Which tended towards what did you say?
Inimical.
Inimical groups.
Inimical group.
Yeah, he was very well known as a literary critic, I think.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
indeed. Yeah.
What are inimical groups? What's he talking about?
I suppose opposing factions in literary opinion.
Yeah, the modernists, anti-modernists,
Yeah.
imagists,
Oh, I
anti-imagists,
see. Okay.
romanticists,
Yeah.
the new poetry, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
So he's
yeah.
He's kind of like a modern poet there. He's not like a real poet. No, I don't think he's in. He is a recent poet.
Well, when did he die? If you've got it there instead, I think he 65. I mean, it's not that recent.
65. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Michael, have you read his novel, Pictures from an
Institution? I think I tried it, and I couldn't really at the time make head or tail of it. But that was an attempt to read it, I think about 30 or 40 years ago. Maybe I'd give it a second try sometime.
It's described here as both hilariously funny and a comment on the hopeless condition of liberal arts colleges. So
yeah, I don't remember it being hopelessly funny, but there we are. Hilariously funny. That's what they said about the Smoking Diaries, which was quite amusing, but it certainly wasn't hilariously funny. I mean, but this is the sort of hype to sell things. Obviously, if we're going to have the other 5 poems, probably it would make sense. I'll send all the poems to everybody when we've read the other 6. Unless people, I'll do that. Everybody will get them anyway. So
we could do it for the next meeting, or we could have next meeting as planned with Father Frank talking about Harry Potter, and then do the remaining 6 afterwards.
But it depends a little bit, obviously, on Father Frank's schedule as well. If October works for him.
Father Frank, you penciled it into your very busy diary for September, haven't you?
Okay, remind me, 15th of September, is it?
I think it was the 15th of September.
Yeah.
It's a little bit. It would interest me to know what people
so
think.
what are you asking?
Well, what Stead is suggesting is, should we do if that's all right with you? But I'd like to hear other people's opinions. The other 6 poems next time in September, and then Harry Potter, or Harry Potter and then come back to the other 6 poems.
I think we should. If Father Frank is fine for the 15th, I think we should grasp him while we can, and
right.
And then
if you're suggesting to postpone Harry Potter to what date?
No, I think we should.
I thought you were actually, Stead. So I misunderstood you. Then I misunderstood you. I thought that's what you're doing.
I think
okay, yeah.
I vote for October.
Not postpone Father Frank, but let's have the remaining 6 after. That's
sure.
I'm for that.
Yeah.
Excellent. Fine. And that's the 15th of. So I can tell people now. I'll send invitations, but that'll be the 15th.
15th of September. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good. Oh,
Oh.
good. Oh, I'm glad that I think Carl has. Oh, Carl's, yeah, good.
Carl said he,
Yeah.
the reason you haven't heard anything from him, in case you missed it, is that he's been advised by his doctor not to talk for the next week or something because of the overstraining of his vocal cords, as simple as that. So there's no reason that he should talk. He has been putting in comments and chats and things.
Yeah, he's been contributing very
yes,
significantly, so that is good. That is good. So please
Okay.
be with us. Oh well, Michael. I mean, that was a really
it was,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fun.
meeting with some good poems, and maybe that offers a model for someone else to introduce a similar number. I didn't know.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, and I hope people. Goodbye to it. I hope people
thanks a lot for
enjoyed that, and I hope
coming.
maybe somebody was motivated to discover a poet that they didn't know or read again. And
all of them.
Yeah, well, that's excellent. I'm glad to hear. Oh, we have the final question before we finish. Is there anything that people found that, oh, I could tell from those poems anything about the person who likes them, or is there's nothing? Or yeah, oh, Edith, yes. Very quick reaction. Yeah.
Yes, I thought all the poems had a sort of were written by people who feel things very deeply and are enormously keen to cover that up, like sort of like an armadillo, you know, they like to construct a shell about themselves because inside there's this very deeply sensitive person. And for that reason, I didn't find them. I found them moving because it's so tragic when people do that. I mean, I think the remedy was best described by C.S. Lewis in a children's book, Voyage of the Dawn Treader, where Eustace, who's he's a rather unpleasant little boy, but he has to have 7 skins dragged off him by a huge dragon with claws until there's nothing, all his skins have gone, and inside there's just him. And then that's, I mean, it's a rather simplistic way of putting it. But I felt all the poems were very sad in that they were a huge cover-up of toxic positivity. And I feel, I'm sorry, Michael, but
yeah, well, I asked for it. Yeah.
That's what, because, and what it means is there's this wonderful, wonderful human being that doesn't feel safe to actually be themselves, and which I find really tragic. The most greatest tragedy, really, of in life, is. Anyway, whatever. But that's what I think.
Interesting. Yeah.
I'm not sure that one can really follow that with any other.
Well, it was just so obvious. I mean, every single poem was, the stiff upper lip sort of.
Oh, really?
Brittle sort of. Oh well, I'm not really bothered by this, but it was just so. I mean, obviously the person writing it was completely the opposite, but they were trying to cover it up. And this is what I mean. The whole point of being a poet is you've got to somehow have the courage to really, go for broke with your, your negativity and your emotions and your things. And they were all brittle, but inside you could see this struggle. I don't know. Anyway, whatever.
Well,
I'll
we will
shut
see
up now.
whether the remaining 6.
The remaining conform to that, yes.
Your analysis or disprove it.
We shall see to that.
Sake, I mean, well, anyway, never mind. But I won't say anymore. It's surely this is Hewitt's left. It's his territory, isn't he? A psychiatrist or something.
Yes.
I know he didn't like a lot of them.
Yeah, no, he didn't. No. Okay.
But I mean, he didn't. He
good to
didn't
have negative
apply enough
feelings rather than
sympathy. I don't
no
think
feelings.
why people, have this toxic positivity approach to lots of things. you know.
Toxic poverty, yeah, yes, yeah, okay. I mean, I wouldn't have thought prayer before birth is in any way a sort of stiff upper lip. I would have thought that's a fairly sort of direct and open poem. I mean, maybe negative, but I wouldn't have said that there's a kind of contrast between an outer shell and an inner sensitivity in that poem, for example, nor indeed in the W.H. Auden poem, though you might say, okay, that's a kind of showing off and there's something inside that could be. But
Well, you've got
anyway, yeah, well,
to revise your list, Michael. You can always
Sorry?
choose other poems
No,
that are
but
more,
this is what the
revealing.
modern world is about, according to, you know, McGilchrist. He says, and this is why I really don't like most modern poetry, is that everybody, it's as if they've had a stroke in the right hemisphere of their brain, and they're just refusing, they're completely refusing to deal with anything that really really shocks, that makes you cry, that makes you, or whatever. I don't know, but I think we, you know, it's we should continue if they're all in that vein, fine, because you know, you can't deny that this is what the 20th and 21st century are like.
so I take it that you dislike all those poems.
Yes, well, I don't dislike them. I'm not moved by them. You know, poetry is supposed to move you.
Oh, I
isn't
see,
it?
I see.
Oh.
Not the in the McNeice. I'm sorry, it was, I don't know. There was something very
Well,
cold about it.
you'll have to think about you know, you're introducing 12 maybe, and in a similar way. That's good. Michael, when
Instead, you were so low toned. I didn't hear what you said.
I'm just saying, Edith, you'll have to think about you know, in finding 12 similar ones at some point.
No, I don't want to find 12. I know.
Then everybody will be worried that they will be analysed anyway.
Michael, when are you back in London?
Oh, maybe in December.
Oh, okay. Oh,
It's not even certain yet.
oh, okay. Oh, well, I look forward to that.
I look forward to that
Yeah,
too.
yeah, no, that's good.
No, I'll definitely let you know.
Yeah. It was good to see you have plenty of reading material where you are. A nice, well-stocked bookshelf.
Indeed, indeed.
All right then.
Janine, yeah, Janine.
Yeah.
I do have a question. These poems, the 12 that you've chosen, or
Hmm.
13 actually, were they read over the course of your lifetime, or were they condensed into a decade, or were they?
Most of them I've known
arranged
from
chronologically,
fairly
or-
young. As the Randall Jarrell was the exception, but most of them I've known fairly long. The W.H. Auden I've known, and the Prayer Before Birth since about 12 years old. And what were the other ones? The Randall Jarrell was the only recent one.
Were
And
they
Elizabeth
chosen
Bishop.
for you to read, or did you seek them out yourself?
I think we had a book of poetry at school, but it wasn't read out, and I found them myself. The W.H. Auden and the Cecil Day Lewis. The Elizabeth Bishop, I have to admit, I first heard from that film.
Mm-hmm.
And Randall Jarrell, as I said, I know the Devil one, but I chose the shorter one. I think, which other ones did we have? I think that was it, was it? Yeah. The Larkin. I don't know how long I've known that Larkin poem, at least 20 years at least. But yeah, so I suppose some of them when I was very young, and others I've picked up on the way. Yeah.
All right then. So look forward to hearing you, Father Frank, on the 15th of September.
So 15th, I'll send out invitations, but people can sort of pencil in already the 15th of September.
And send me any pictures you would like to be used
Yes,
to
I will.
your talk. So that'll be very good.
Yes, I will.
Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and in Britain anyway, the bank holiday. Bank Monday. So yeah, thanks so much, and thanks again, Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Cheers,
thanks so
guys.
many people for
Bye.
coming.
Thanks, Michael.
Bye.
Bye.